Senator Tom Cotton out of Arkansas is joining us. He's on the Senate Intel Committee as well as the Senate Armed Services Committee with Senator Kevin Cramer. We'll get to the Fufang thing at the end of this conversation. Senator Cotton, welcome to the show. It's great to have you, sir.
Hey, Chris, it's good to be on with you. Thanks for having me.
I know our time is limited, and if you don't mind, because I loved your interview on CNBC on July 14th, I just want to play a short clip of it for our audience to give them some context, and we'll chat about it, okay?
Sure thing.
Thank you. So Senator Cotton just recently wrote a letter to BlackRock, Larry Fink. He was asked about it on CNBC from Andrew Sorkin. Here is his response in regards to ESG.
Well, Andrew, what Larry Fink and BlackRock have done, in part through collusion with this climate action partnership, is essentially create a climate cartel. They are trying to suppress investment in the fossil fuel industry in America. And I know you have a lot of CEOs and investors who watch. I would just say this. If you're thinking about joining this climate cartel, you better think again and you better lawyer up. There's a reason why America's top law firms are already advising their clients to be wary here, because this is contributing to $5 a gallon gas. And when Republicans take charge in November, I'm going to make sure that the Congress is investigating these matters. This is almost certainly a breach of these firms' fiduciary duties, probably a civil violation of the antitrust laws, exposing them to triple damages, and very possibly a criminal violation. When we win back the White House in 2024 and the Department of Justice and the Federal Trade Commission is no longer an ideological and partisan weapon against the oil and gas industry, some of these executives could be facing time in federal prison.
Wow, very strong words there, Senator Cotton. And then the best part, I don't think Andrew Sorkin got it. He goes, can we just lower the temperature a little bit here, Senator?
Well, I haven't changed my mind in a couple of weeks, Chris. Larry Fink and BlackRock and all the participants in this so-called Climate Action Fund are engaged in an open combination, cartel, conspiracy, whatever word you want to use from our antitrust laws. It is taking a step back from the antitrust laws, almost certainly a violation of these companies' fiduciary duties under state laws to their investors to seek the best returns they can get. But under the federal antitrust laws, there's civil violations, and if you violate those, it can be a award of triple damages. But maybe most important for the CEOs and other participants in this climate cartel, there are criminal antitrust penalties, and those are usually reserved for violations like cartels, like conspiracies and combinations that are working in concert together to allocate markets or fix prices in some ways. And I think there's a strong case to be made that this warrants a criminal investigation. And therefore, I would recommend anyone who's thinking about stepping into this climate cartel to think again. Why take that risk? All for the purpose so you can feel good about yourself or your company for getting people to drive coal-powered cars, which I would remind everyone is what electric cars really are. They're powered by coal or gas or nuclear power. Also, you can try to strangle to death the oil and gas industry in America, which provides the livelihood for millions of Americans and tens of thousands of North Dakotans. I would recommend they all think again.
Well, I know that everybody on the Bakken that's listening to us, Senator Cotton, and all the ag producers here are cheering you on in this conversation. I'm sure you saw what the National Credit Union was suggesting, hey, we've got to be weary of loans to farmers and ranchers as well. I know you grew up on a cattle farm. I think the big question everybody has, first up, before I ask you that, what executives are you suggesting may get criminal charges against them?
So in this case, the cartel is largely investment executives, and they are targeting oil and gas companies or their service providers. So think about companies like Exxon, for instance, or Halliburton or other people and companies that work in the oil patch. The second group of companies they're targeting are major users of oil and gas and coal. So think about investor-owned utilities or the major airlines that use all the jet fuel and so forth. If those investment executives are operating as a cartel to try to suppress prices to maintain market allocation, then they could face criminal charges. And remember, Larry Fink, for instance, keeps claiming that he has not divested from oil and gas companies. If that's the case, some of these investors may also be making money in both hands. On the one hand, they charge their investors much higher fees for these so-called ESG funds, I guess, so the investors can feel good about themselves. They got to pay more for their to feel virtuous. But on the other hand, if the effect of that ESG investing movement, of this climate cartel, is to restrict the supply of oil and gas, therefore drive up the price, therefore put greater profits in the pockets of companies like Exxon, and they're still investing in those companies, then they're making money in that hand as well.
Well, I thought it was fascinating within that interview when Joe mentioned it's probably China that's pushing the narrative in regards to investing in all these ESG programs, because they're the one that have got, obviously, the EV batteries and the lithium and things of that, and solar panels. What say you?
Well, certainly it's the kind of thing that China would do. It's the exact kind of thing that Russia has done. If you've seen any of the propaganda against hydraulic fracturing over the last 20 years, there's almost a guaranteed certainty you've been influenced by foreign interference because Russia plainly does not want America to become the world's largest producer of oil and gas. So they've invested surreptitiously in a lot of the anti-fracking propaganda you've made saying. So it's exactly the kind of thing you would expect China to do. And you're right that they benefit from so-called green technology because they are the world's largest producer of things like solar panels or wind turbines, or for that matter, the minerals that go into electric vehicle batteries and so much other so-called green technology. Why in the world would we hamstring the kind of energy, oil and gas, in which we lead the world, and effectively subsidize the kind of energy that our chief competitor underwrites? So these progressives, they may march under the banner of climate change, but it looks an awful lot like China's five-star flag, if you ask me.
Senator, I'm sure you've seen the news as well. Continental Resources, Harold Hamm, he's considered the granddaddy of the Bakken, is now looking to actually privatize his company, buy back all the stocks. He says that Continental, I love how he says this, the public markets, they underappreciate what Continental does. Now, you served our nation. I got two more things I want to get to, sir, in a limited amount of time. Unless you can stay for another segment, we'd love to keep you. But my question is why? You served our nation. Thank you for your service. Why send young men like yourself to the sand where they can possibly die rather than send them to the Bakken where they can prosper?
Well, that's exactly right, Chris. We're fortunate that today we're much less dependent on foreign oil than we were, say, under Ronald Reagan. And that we have achieved true energy independence until the Democrats began to hamstring it. But I would put it even more starkly. Why would we even want to have to depend on imports from friendly countries like Canada even, or Mexico, our other partner in North America, when we can supply all of our energy needs and support most of our allies? Energy independence is vital for our security because the opposite of it, if you just think about it, is energy dependence, which is a humiliating condition for a superpower.
Senator, we'd love to have you back, and I know that we've got you just for this segment, so I want to ask you this. You're on the Senate Intel Committee, the Senate Armed Services Committee with Senator Kramer. Recently, Senator Rubio, the ranking person there, also Senator Hoeven, Senator Kramer, sent a letter to the Secretary of Defense and the Treasury Secretary in regards to the CFIUS as far as this Fufang project up here in Grand Forks. With what you know, being on these very, very important committees, what do you feel the people of North Dakota should know about this project, and should they say no to it?
I would say no to it, Chris, for a couple reasons. One, we have no idea what will go into that site, which is in close proximity to the Grand Forks Air Force Base. For years, I've warned about Chinese telecom equipment going into small rural telephone networks in the Great Plains and the Rocky Mountains, which just happen to be in vicinity to many of our missile bases silos. CNN, of all people, just acknowledged this recently that it is a genuine threat that China could be spying on those bases and those silos using that equipment. Now, China claims that they're not, just like they claim they would never do that outside Grand Forks. But how do you know for sure? The only way to know is for it not to be present. That's one reason. The second reason is China cannot feed itself. That is a huge advantage that we have over China because we can not only feed ourselves, we feed much of the world. Why would we allow China and Chinese-owned or associated or sponsored companies to come into America to buy up our farmland or to buy up agricultural businesses or to open or expand agricultural businesses? Again, we wouldn't have let Soviet Russia do this in the 1970s and 1980s. We shouldn't allow Chinese communists to do it now.
Senator Cotton, thank you so much for the time. Last question, sir. Is a CFIUS review enough I mean, is that a strong enough move to say yay or nay to this project?
I have my doubts that it's enough. I think, again, we just, as a nation, should adopt the same kind of approach towards the Chinese communists that we had towards the Russian communists, that we simply don't truck with them, that we should try to decouple as far as we can in critical industries in our competition with China. And trust me, agriculture and biosciences are vital domains of competition that the Chinese communists recognize, and we should recognize them as well.
Yes. Senator Tom Cotton, we really appreciate the time. We'd love to have you back, sir, and keep up the great work.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Again, Senator Tom Cotton out of Arkansas, calling the ESG movement the climate cartel. Some very strong words there, but I think he's hitting it right on the head.